Good evening. On behalf of the Abingdon, Virginia Town Council, I'd like to welcome everyone to the February 2015 meeting of the Council. Appreciate everybody coming out on what's a pretty chilly night by most anybody's definition. A couple of things that I would note is in terms of housekeeping. Prior to each meeting, members of our council receive some preparatory materials to help us prepare for the topics that will be coming before our consideration each evening. There is a copy of those documents on the table to my left. More than welcome to review those if you are so inclined. Also, we'd ask that you turn off your cell phones or put them on vibrate while you're with us this evening as well. That being said, I'll ask our clerk, a woman of many talents and titles, Ms. Cecile Rosenbaum, if she will call the roll, please.
Mrs. During? Here. Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphries?
Here.
Mrs. Lowe?
Here.
And Mayor Morgan?
Here.
And let the record reflect that all 5 council members are present.
Okay, thank you. And at this time, I'll call upon Councilwoman Jane During to lead the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me as we say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, we have 2 sets of minutes this evening for our consideration. We have both the work session minutes and the regular meeting minutes from January the 5th, 2015. I will ask if there are any corrections or additions to be noted on these minutes. Hearing none, I'll ask for a motion.
I move that we accept both minutes as presented.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, if our clerk will call the roll, please.
Mrs. During?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. It's an unusual evening. We have no public hearings, second readings, consideration of bids this evening, and that brings us to reports from our town manager. And at this time, we have consideration of an appropriation of funds for council contingency for costs associated with a council retreat, which is scheduled February the 20th through the 22nd, 2015. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you will recall, this has been planned in the works for several weeks now to try to set up a council retreat to work on team building as we work into the upcoming fiscal year. This particular retreat will take place in Asheville, North Carolina, and we will have a professional facilitator who will be there present with us to work us through some team building process in trying to help us be able to work into building on the upcoming budget and also working into the development of a capital improvement plan at some later date when we will have a separate retreat for that. We did not budget money this year for this particular retreat, and Ms. Rosenbaum and I believe, based on our estimates that we came up with the expenses associated with the facilitator, with lodging for the staff, council, and the facilitator, and meals that would be necessary, that an appropriation of $10,000 would be adequate to cover that retreat.
Okay. Is there a motion regarding this matter? Don't be shy, folks. You know, and again, this is coming out of the contingency that it's already available to council for this budget year.
I'll entertain that as a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion.
Clear my mouth, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
thank you, all right. We have a motion and second to allocate from council contingency funds $10,000 to cover the cost of the council retreat, which would cover the cost of the facilitators, meals, lodging, and transportation for the 3-day period. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. During?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you. Okay, our next item is a report on the Cruise-In Car Club request from the January 2015 regular meeting. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, at the last council meeting, the members from the Cruising Car Club were present, and they have an event that they wish to take place, which involves closing down a section of Main Street in the town of Abingdon. I believe I signed off on it for May 30th of this year from 4 p.m. until 9 p.m. At the last meeting, council asked me what the charges would be, or what the charges were last year that we assessed to the car club when they had this same event. And I have produced those figures. At last year's event, to close down the street, the actual street closure cost was $480. And to have 2 police officers present was $288 for that particular evening. Would point out, I believe last year was a holiday. This occurred on a holiday. Is that wrong?
Next week. The 26th was the holiday.
Oh, okay. I stand corrected. But anyway, those were the total charges assessed. At some point after the application, they reduced the time period from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., which reduced the normal fees down to what I mentioned earlier. And I have the fee schedule that the council adopted, and basically with regard to a street closure, the council's fees that were set for a street closure were $240 for a 2-hour increment, and that was to cover the placement of the barricades, setup, breakdown, and in addition, the police officers were to be paid their hourly rate, which was $36 per hour per officer.
Okay, now do you have a, I'm not sure where we're at on this. In other words, this is the fee schedule that we had in the past, and I'm going to have to be reminded a little bit, were we being asked to waive this fee? Was that the...
Or reduce it.
They, I believe, had asked that it be waived or reduced, and if you'll recall, my statement to the council last month was that we have to be extremely careful because we do set these fees for other groups and organizations that carry on the events in town, and if we do this in this case, we very likely will be doing it in other cases.
So do we do it in the case of Plum Alley Days and the Christmas Parade? Do we waive those fees?
In terms of Plum Alley Day, we do not, I'm going to have to back off that. I'm not, Cecile, do you know if we have charged for that?
I'd have to ask the chief. Do you remember if we put any charges for Plum Alley Day this year on the officers?
No. Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
The original setup is set up, I believe, if we have sponsorship or a sponsorship partnership, we don't charge. Highlands Festival, Plum Alley, those types of things where we do a partnership, we waive all those fees.
And we do that because of the number of people they bring to town for meals and lodging.
This I don't know.
Well, I think it's basically been because those types of events were, even though we know that the Highlands Festival is put on by a separate organization,
Right.
everybody thinks it is a town-provided event, and we're the ones that get the calls to have to deal with all the setup, the breakdown, and everything that's associated with those types of events. So we've just traditionally, I believe, waived those charges. This fee schedule was something that we just created a couple of years ago. So
I remember. I was just questioning if we have a group like for Plum Alley Days that have a proven record of bringing people to town, and they're, you know, the restaurants apparently are supportive of them because they're filling their restaurants up and paying meals taxes. is that, I mean, you know, is there some break we give groups for bringing people to town, or do we charge each and every group? Because, you know, Plum Alley Days is also, you know, so that's my question is, they bring people to town, so we try to help facilitate that. And
We
so,
were just trying to recoup some of the costs.
Right.
That's all when we set this thing up, I mean,
right,
we can revisit the thing.
Recommendation about this one, is there, you know, way we could, maybe not eliminate all, but at least reduce it?
We might be able to reduce it. I will say they've got it set for 5 hours as opposed to 4 hours, so that is a greater expense than the one that was last year. But I'm certainly open to trying to work with the folks, but at the same time, I don't want to get in a position that anybody who comes with an event comes before me or the council and is expecting a reduction in the fee schedule.
And we've talked about those cases that we waived the fee. Talk about the cases, the examples that the fee's in place. Or is this new territory?
This is new territory. I didn't know if that's the type of report you all wanted. I mean, we can compile that because Kim keeps a notebook of all of those events. I thought you just wanted to know how much it costs for these people for the street.
Well, I don't think we were necessarily very clear, perhaps weren't even quite sure of what we wanted. But I will lay out another option, which is, there are about three principles or here that need to be considered. One of which is there are very real costs that occur when we have an event like this, and secondly, that we're concerned about being fair to the parties involved with what we're doing, and because again we need to be somewhat consistent with this, and I know that this group also is making contributions to their fees, for a strictly charitable purpose. It occurs to me that one of the options, and I don't know that it's a good one, but we have the potential to. Council has contingency funds that are available to us, and we could actually say that as a project at the council that we could be the sponsor for this particular event. And, that may be an option that we could consider as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am.
Since it is new territory, and these fees were, I have to admit, I wasn't part of council when you created the fees, but I do have to understand that there are expenses to this.
Yeah.
And I think if we sponsor one event, what's to keep us from having to sponsor subsequent events?
Well, and that is the slippery slope.
It is.
but
Yeah.
it is, the thing that I asked at last council meeting was what we charge. I know we don't, I know that frankly, the town kind of created Virginia Highlands Festival, and so I don't think that one is one that compares, but the Plum Alley Days started just like this, and so do we apply the same fees to the Plum Alley Days?
No.
So Kiwanis Club doesn't pay anything?
I'd have to go back again and pull the specifics to see if they do pay for barricades or anything like that. I will say with the Highlands Festival, the council makes an appropriation.
Right, we do make an appropriation.
For that.
We also do for the.
Right, right, and so there's been a precedent set when we did that. Right, so there's a precedent that's been set by us doing that already. If you're looking for a compromise, you can, you could say that we could, if they would pay the 5 hours for police, which is $320, and then we waive the other fees, such as or become a co-sponsor with them, and that would allow us to be able to assume the burden of placing the barriers and stuff, but yet they would pay the police department, which are the actual hands-on, people that are working the event. Then that would be that's 2 people, $32 an hour, and they'd be working 5 hours, and that would be $320. And then basically about $320 we would be, or according to last year, about $340 we would be putting in.
But can I ask, who would like to speak for the car club?
Go, Jess. I guess I will.
So
Come on up.
Come closer.
Yeah.
Come closer.
You know, we're,
Back here anyway.
The club themselves are, this is fun for them, I understand, but what you do is raise money for the entry fees, and you give that money back to the school children here.
We did this year, or last year, we gave E.B. Stanley a helping hand with the backpack program, which they call it sponsorship. They have not had any sponsors before. That was something that has been overlooked in the school systems. All the school systems were sponsored to a certain extent. A.B. Stanley has been overlooked. So we had found out about this, and we want to give back to our children or friends or family, our community, and that's why we're trying to help our community, our town, the businesses in the town.
The businesses were very complimentary, so, and I think that it did, you know, it made a significant impact for their businesses for, you know, for the day or whatever. So I guess my question is, if the council were to consider contributing to your event from our contingency, just like we do some of the other festivals for the same reasons, can you verify to us that this is a fundraiser?
Yes, ma'am.
And that those funds will go back to,
Our
and can you
community.
tell me, you know,
I have a question. Are you a 501c3?
We are a nonprofit. We also are a corporation. We do have our numbers, and I can get that for you if you need it.
Okay, and again, I think we're all trying to hit a happy place here, and Rick came forward with one suggestion. My understanding is the numbers that Highlands Festival will bring in, the numbers that the Plum Alley has offset, and there's a perceived return on investment. Do we want to set a number of participants as a threshold?
Well, I'm not sure that the Highlands, the Highlands does indirect, but I don't know anything that they contribute to the community for other than maybe meals and lodging. Is that, do you think they don't give any money back to the schools, kids, or anything like that, do they?
no, I think, you know, they contribute mightily to the cultural life of the community,
Right.
which is one of their primary, you know, objectives, and as a side benefit, there's certainly meals and lodging taxes that are generated from the Highlands Festival. You know, I think as much as anything, we're concerned about whatever precedent we have here, but it's also a small amount of money too, you know.
And I'm not concerned
Yeah.
about this one occasion,
Right.
and certainly, this is not, I'm not against this idea.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is, if next week there's another proposal, and next week there's another proposal, and we've got these real costs for security and street closures, what does that do to us? Not today or tomorrow, but we are setting a precedent, and I just want to do it with our eyes open.
The ideal thing is to have it included in the budget on an annual basis, and we've, you know, strived to do that in the past, but, you know.
So they could apply for the kind of appropriations that...
They could, but when they're having the event and when the budget would come around, it'd be different years, you know, quite frankly.
for this event, we'll have to make a decision. For the next event, they could go ahead and request, they could request a letter that they could fill out their forms. You know, I remember when Plum Alley Day started, and I'm going to say how old I am here, but, you know, it started very small too by the Kiwanis Club, and it's grown into something phenomenal. I think this event can grow into something almost as equal to Plum Alley Days, because I think it's the kind of event that people enjoy, and I saw it work. And the only reason I'm really pressing for it is because I saw it work down at when they were doing the air show, and the cars during the air show had more participants than the air show did when they were, you know, when they had a split field for that. So I've seen the interest, and I think it has the potential. And as Tony said the last time, if you're going to do it, wrap it all the way around Wall Street and bring in all your cars. If you're going to do it, bring in the Army. I think it has the potential to be another mini Plum Alley days, if you will, and I would support giving them seed money this year and letting them make a budget request for next year, instead of, and not, not negate our own management's decisions, but to consider as a council to give them seed money.
I am not, I think this idea is great. I saw those pictures and it was great. I think making a one-off with a clear note of what proceeds after this, that's satisfactory.
I think one of the things is that we're not going to know actually how to proceed from here. But I think it brings up, something kind of something that's glaring, and that is that we don't have a set policy of what we need to do and how we need to do it. And so, I would think that along with whatever we move to do in this case, that somewhere along the line, that this becomes I hate to use the word, work session item, to look at it, to see how we want to handle this in the future. There are so many good, and I know Chip knows this too, there's so many good events that come around. We don't want to say, gosh, Chip, you got a good event, and an equal one come around, we go, no, we can't do you. And so, so to find that terra firma, I think that in the future, maybe in one of the work sessions, we consider on how to proceed this after this time.
And I have some suggestions of how we might do that, but we won't go into it, at the present time. But I believe...
I didn't support last year. They asked last year, and I didn't support last year because it was their signature event, if you will, and they proved themselves by bringing people to town. So they paid it last year, is that correct?
Yes.
And you brought enough people to town to get the restaurateurs on Main Street to send letters of support. And so, I think there is a process for us to look at people who are asking for us to but I think the success from last year, I'm willing to make a motion, Mr. Mayor, if
Okay, well, in terms of getting that motion correct, what I'm hearing said is that there is a desire, first of all, to make it, if we make an allocation, to make it a one-time event and encourage the group to apply through the regular,
Budget process.
yeah, let's wait till I have everybody's attention. Okay. So again, I think what I'm hearing is that there's a desire, first of all, to make it a one-time allocation and encourage the group to apply through the regular budget process. And also hear that we would not so much be waiving a fee as we would be making an allocation from the council's contingency funds to cover the real costs
Yes.
that are associated with that.
Yeah, I don't think waiving the fee is a good way to go.
And I get the impression, Mr. Kelly, that the fee would be around $768.
It would be, if they go 5 hours, it would be probably another couple $100 on top of that amount. I see the chief coming forward.
Yeah, the officer fee, of course, it slides based upon seniority, pay raises each year. Just so you know real quick, the dirty math, I take the average hourly rate of all the folks in the patrol function, I double that, and then I pay the officers time and a half. The remaining 25% goes to their fringe benefits, which it does not cover all of that, and it goes toward vehicle operations that we may have to use in that. So that $32 may be a little more.
It sounds to me like
Yeah.
a contribution of about $1,000 would be appropriate, based on what I'm hearing, for the total event.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this. The appropriation that you're seeking to do would be made to the car club. We would bill the car club, they would pay the money back to the town in effect.
Correct.
I believe that would be the plan, and again, it would be a one-time allocation, and they would be encouraged to apply in future as part of the regular budget process, which will get underway in late March. We would be, you would need to apply the first part of March, I think would be about right, and then we'll be sort of shaping the budget shortly after that.
If you'll write your address down so that the clerk can send you a budget request.
Okay.
There's a form to fill
Yes,
out.
ma'am.
I'd like just to make one more statement. What would be ideal is for this community to recognize the value of this and for sponsorships to start fueling this so you're independent and this would be less of an issue, or if we still made an allocation, it could be spent towards something other than the fee. So in the next year, use your goodwill that you've built to see if you can get some of those sponsorships, because that would be awfully strong to put in your presentation.
And we might mention that in her day job, Ms. During is a first-class fundraiser and could probably provide some advice and counsel about how to do that.
Yeah, because one of the things that, Mr. Mayor, that the Fairview Committee does is we sponsor a car show during the Highlands Festival. And the way we defray our cost is we charge an entry fee, plus we charge everyone that comes in, anyone that comes in to view the cars. And my mother sells, and Deb Eisenhower make up the hot dog committee, and they sell hot dogs at a concession stand down there at the thing. So I mean, that's, yeah,
So
so there are ways. and
There's
so-
another experienced hand at this business here that I'm sure is offered. Okay, we've had a good discussion on this, and I think we may have a consensus on that, but I will welcome a motion.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move that we give the, can you tell me the name?
Cruising Classics Car Club.
Cruising Classics Car Club, $1,000 to host their fundraiser on May the 30th of 2000 and,
You
sorry,
didn't say it.
from council contingency.
Okay?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to provide a one-time allocation of $1,000 to the Cruising Car Club to assist in putting on the event, which is scheduled for
May the 30th.
May the 30th. And I'm sure your motion included that this is to be a one-time allocation, and they are encouraged to participate in the annual budget development process. Is there a second?
Yes.
We have a second. Is there any further comment or discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Deering.
Aye.
Mr. Howard.
Aye.
Mr. Humphries.
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe.
Aye.
Mayor Morgan.
Aye. Okay.
And the
thank
reason
you.
we're saying one-time allocation, just to be clear, is that your group can make a request, and we hear those requests this year. We're going to hear at the end of March. So please be timely on your,
Yeah, the budget non-departmentals are due on March the 1st.
Okay.
Actually, March the 2nd, because I think March the 1st is a Sunday, so the deadline, and the form is actually online, but I can send you one. That's
Thank you.
All right, well,
Thank you all very much.
We're marking our calendars and looking forward to being there.
May I ask one other question? We were worried about something happens, the Lord gave us perfect weather that day. What if we have rain? Can we make it the following weekend
Is that
as a
you-
rain delay? Or a rain?
Well,
That'd be the only thing I'd have to ask.
you know, I generally have no problem with that if we knew well in advance, but if we get the thing set up, we've here we go again, committing costs to the event, but hopefully we won't have that problem. I'm going to be optimistic.
Oh, yeah.
I think what he's talking about was, could they, if they, not if they see it that day, but if the forecast looks like they need to have a rain date, could they ask for it?
If we don't have any conflict with anything else going on in town, we'll make it happen.
Come on, Chip, I got a daughter getting married that day. Of course it's going to rain.
Yeah.
I hope not.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All righty. Mr. Kelly, you and I made a trip to Richmond the early part of the month to meet with the Tobacco Commission and talk about the Alliance for Rural Health, and I believe you want to make some comments about that experience.
Yes, I will, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We did make that trip to the Tobacco Commission. During that visit, we had several partners who were there present with us, including Mountain States Hospital and Emory and Henry College, and I believe even the president of the Virginia Community College System was there as well.
And if I might add, I think the Chief Executive Officer of the Osteopathic Medical School at Virginia Tech was there with us.
That's correct.
And also the Community Foundation of Marion, and I believe that was it. Yes, he was there
He was there
representing
with
Emory and
Emory.
Henry. Very, very good contingent.
The commission basically indicated that they liked the project. really liked the fact that we had a group of partners together that they thought could make this project take off. However, because it had been going on for approximately 5 years and had been operating prior under the name of King College, who was no longer involved in it, I believe the Secretary of Commerce was very concerned that the application should be reapplied for in the current name, which was the Alliance for Rural Health. And Terry Kilgore, who is the chair of the committee, indicated to us both prior to and afterwards, and even as recently as last week in our trip to Richmond, that he felt that the money was still there to cover the project. He was optimistic about the application coming back. I know that Tarek Zaidi and Jeff Mitchell are supposed to be working on that application. I contacted them last week as well as today. I was advised that Tarek has diagnosed flu. Jeff has indicated that the application has been significantly prepared and will be filed in the very near future. I'm optimistic in the sense that if it gets filed, they may actually have a special meeting of the Tobacco Commission to take it up earlier than their regular meeting. That's not guaranteed, but at least that was something, I believe, Mr. Mayor, that was conveyed to us when we were there, and it would be coming under their Special Projects Committee instead of the Southwest Virginia Committee, which the original project was under. So I think that the project has great merit. It has great partners involved now, and I can only hope that once the application gets filed again, that we'll get a favorable ruling on the application. If we do not get a favorable ruling this time, I do think that the project will probably cease at that point.
Well, there's a good chance that it will cease, but I've also, given some thought to the issue of how you could move it forward even without the Tobacco Commission funding, because great things have been accomplished in terms of assembling the collaborative group that has come together. It's a really unprecedented group in this part of the world that have, that's working on improving the quality of health and trying to produce a healthy and prosperous southwestern Virginia. But I'm like you, I'm very optimistic, even though, on the surface it appeared we had a disaster. I'm very optimistic that the groundwork has been laid to bring this project home to us, and it'll be a proud day when it happens. But it was an interesting trip, and I think we're on the right track.
Yeah, since Dr. Couch is out there in the audience, I would also point out that he's been actively engaged and involved in the project here recently as well. So we're happy to have him on board as well.
Very good, sir. Any questions or comments about this at the present time? Okay, thank you. Our next item is consideration of dates for work session meeting to review the budget for the 2015-2016 fiscal year, and I believe we had a series of dates in March for meetings. And Mr. Kelly, would care to comment about that?
Yes, I believe council at our prior work session this afternoon, we agreed that we would tentatively schedule 4 work sessions with the possibility of holding more if necessary, but those work sessions would be on March the 4th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. involving half of the town's department heads. The next would be on March the 11th from 5:30 to 9 p.m. with the other half of the town department heads. The third would be on March the 18th from 5:30 to 9, which would be a meeting to discuss future capital improvements of the town. And then the last one would be on Wednesday, March 25th, to meet with non-departmentals over $10,000 in requests, and that meeting will be from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m.
Okay. So again, we have the 4 dates that are proposed, and I believe it would be appropriate to take an action establishing those meeting dates. Okay, Mr. Humphries?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we set the dates for the budget hearing to be March the 4th, March the 11th, March 18th, and March 25th from 5:30 to 9 o'clock, except for the last one being 8:30, as the town manager has recommended.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mrs. Jerry?
Aye.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye. Okay, thank you. We've been hearing some things about the Fields Penthouse, and Mr. Matthew Johnson, our Director of Planning, is here to give us an update on that situation.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll try to make my remarks brief. Just a quick update on Fields Pen and what's been going on there. As you may know, it has been closed. We have some issues with the structure there that we're trying to address. Just some brief history. The major renovation to the house in the early 90s. By the late 1990s, they started to see cracks appearing in the plaster. And in the early 2000s, they did some engineering studies there. They determined that they thought that that was due to the shrink swell nature of the clay soil that was located underneath the house. There was some work done to try to alleviate those issues, including French drains. In 2006, there was a follow-up inspection by the same engineering firm who decided that they thought that it was still an issue with the soils, which brings us to the current time where we have contracted with Davis Buckley Architects out of Washington, D.C. To look at the foundation and some of the architectural issues that are occurring there. Just a little bit about Davis Buckley. They're over 30 years of experience, quite a bit with National Trust and National Register listed properties. They have quite an extensive experience with older structures. As you can see, it's very obvious when you go by the house. As you can see in this photo, even the northwest corner of the house is starting to sag a little bit. You can see that in that window. There are cracks in the plaster inside the home. There are quite a few things on the exterior as well that you can see in the masonry. Davis Buckley has sent us, and it's kind of difficult to see that, but they have sent us a request that we open up a section of the ceiling and a section of the floor. We discussed it with them, and I was able to convince them that we did not need to open up the ceiling. We ended up sending staff up into the attic to take some photographs ahead of their visit, which will be next Monday and Tuesday. We wanted to see if that would suffice, and it did. They were very happy with the photos. They think that they can get in and see what they need to see that way. We did have to open up a section of the floor. This is the second floor. This is a shot before we did the work. We did take one of the baseboards out and one section of the floor so that you can see into the floor joists as they meet the wall. There was signs of a previous repair. That was a paper from the Roanoke Times in 1955 that somebody had stuck down there. It was in remarkably good shape. But the masonry was not. That masonry extends to the outside wall. We could push on that and it would flex. So there are some things going on there with the mortar that we need to have them look at. Just a very quick idea of what we're hoping to learn here. They're going to be doing some excavations around the foundation, some borings on the outside in the soil to try to investigate what the condition of the outside wall and foundation is. They're going to be looking at the interior as well, the facade, the floor, the roof, try to see how the structure is moving, if you will. They're going to provide us with a narrative. They're going to give us recommendations for how they think it should be fixed. I want to be clear that those won't be engineered drawings or construction plans, but they will give us cost estimates for that so that we can use that for budgetary purposes for upcoming CIP requests. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them if I can.
Anybody?
A slick presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very nice. I guess the one thing that I have one question, and that is how will this affect any of the other events? We do Earth Day, we do Arbor Day, we do Colonial Trade Fair, all taking place from spring all the way into the fall around the house.
We're waiting to see what Davis Buckley has to tell us about the structure to see if it is safe for people to occupy or to be on the property. we're going to let them make that determination. However, we've been in touch with Amy Looney, is our superintendent there. She has been looking at some of those issues revolving around Arbor Day, Earth Day, and the Colonial Trade Fair to try to see if we can accommodate them on other portions of the property, perhaps, and just wall off or section off the front northwest quadrant to keep people from walking near that portion of the home.
So who has the responsibility for making that final determination? Is Amy the one that makes that determination?
I will work with Amy to do that, and we're waiting to hear what Davis has to say about that.
Okay. Others? Well, I wish it was a happier topic, but thank you. This is very helpful to, see what's going on there. It's certainly a significant part of our town's history and a fine home, and I hope we can get things stabilized and have it back open again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, that brings us to matters not on the agenda, and I believe we have with us tonight Dr. Couch, president of Virginia Highlands Community College, and who has a presentation for us this evening.
Thank you very much, Mayor and Council. I want to present to you the annual report to the community, and obviously we're your community's college, and so I want to come before you and share that with you. That's a document that gives some stories about the impact that we have on lives. Obviously, we think that we are a positive impact on our community. We have approximately 3,400 students, and 45% of those are from Washington County. And so of those 1,500 students approximately in Washington County participating in our educational programs, those are some of the stories that, at a personal level, that impact the positive nature of our community. And there's two reports I would share with you from both Georgetown and Harvard. By 2018, 63% or 57% of the jobs will require some post-secondary education. And obviously, we feel like we're positively impacting that. So I wanted to share that with you and say thank you for your support of the college and look forward to working with you. Obviously, I'm a relatively new president and want to come before you and say thank you for your support.
Well, thank you, and certainly the community college has provided a wonderful educational focal point in our community. It has made a big difference in a lot of lives of the students in this part of the world and contributes greatly to both the cultural life and the economy of our town. I will ask you, how are things going in terms of enrollment? And
actually, statewide, the enrollment is down a little bit. However, we're there are 5 institutions of the 23 community colleges that's experienced some enrollment growth, and actually we're leading that enrollment growth in the state. So
very good.
Positive. Obviously, we feel good about that, and some good things are happening. So we think we're going in the right direction.
Very good.
To what do you attribute your growth?
We have done a couple of things. We have a strong program with our high school students. That about 20% of our enrollment is students taking high school courses and college courses. In addition to that, we have you may see some of our billboards, we call it a Take 10 program. But a traditional semester typically will start at the 1st of January and conclude at the 1st of May. Our Take 10 program allows students to, in this semester, start mid-February and conclude in mid-May. And so it's a way to compress some coursework if you didn't get that first start point, and people make decisions about educational programs at different periods in their life. Same thing with in fall, if you miss that first start period, those first 6 weeks, and so it's a way for you to start later in the semester and still realize coursework, and that's been a very positive program for us, and a number of colleges don't always do that, and so obviously you have to do some additional scheduling and other kinds of things, but it's out of the traditional curriculum patterns that you may find in many institutions. And so trying to be flexible to meet students' needs. And, community colleges do a great job in terms of access, helping students to remove barriers to, about 70% of our students receive financial aid. So there are lots of programs we do to try to provide opportunities for students to take coursework and realize our educational goals, and this is just another one of those. So.
Thank you.
we like to think that you can stay near and go far.
Very good, sir. All
You know,
righty.
Tell us
That
just a
works.
little bit, I've seen the presentation, but about your at-risk program, your students at risk that David Matlock oversees.
We, as you would imagine, community college students in general have many different experiences come to us. And many of those obviously have very clear goals, but many of them are also very fragile. And they don't always have support systems and other kinds of things to help them be successful. And actually, Greg's wife works closely with that population to help students be successful. And that is one of the hallmarks that I said about access. The other piece is we want to be, once you get there, we want to help you be successful. In no way do we want to lower the academic bar, because that serves no one, them or us or in our community. And so the academic bar has to remain high, but at the same time, we want to provide services that help students be successful. And in many cases, they don't have services and support systems at home to help do that. And I think you're talking about our program that David does with the Richard Lee Festival. Is that the program you're talking about?
Yeah.
We are at-risk students that foster kids, and so the data is very compelling. That population of students, they're up against it in terms of their ability to be successful, and so the state of Virginia has identified that program as one that we want to support. And our college has been tremendously successful in that, and David Matlock's work with the Richard Lee Festival and other kinds of things to help financially support it. And so, again, it's another one of those kind of hidden programs that's part of who we are at Virginia Highlands to help students be successful.
Very good, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your everything you're doing for us. Now, I'm going to take another liberty. I see a young gentleman out there in a scout uniform tonight. Are you by chance working on your citizenship merit badge?
Yes.
Well, if you'll come forward, I might give you something here.
Sure enough, I believe it.
Yeah.
You know what a noogie is. You know what a noogie is, don't
What
you?
is your name, by the way?
My name is Clayton.
Clayton Ball? And you're a tenderfoot at this point?
I am, yes.
Okay. Let me give you an official Town of Abingdon lapel pin, highly coveted. Very few people have these, but we always make a point of trying to give them to young scouts. And I was an Eagle Scout myself, and we're particularly pleased to see you here and working on your citizenship and the community merit badge I think you'd be doing here tonight. One of the things that we learned is, when we serve on the town council, is that everybody gets excited about national politics and who's running for president and that kind of thing. But the level of government that really has the greatest impact on our lives is this level right here, the local level. Because the local level determines whether we have good schools in our community, whether we have a good police department, whether we have a fire department that will come if you have a problem, or if you need to go to the hospital, somebody who can take you there, whether you have clean water to drink and so forth, and somebody to haul the trash off. Those are very important things. So local government is the level that has the greatest impact on your life. It's also the level that you can have the greatest influence on. These folks don't mind cornering us when we're in the grocery store and telling us what's on their minds, and that's the way it should be, too. So we thank you for being here. We wish you luck in your scouting career. And you're in Troop 222?
Methodist Church, Abingdon Methodist.
Yeah, it's a
Tom
good
Folks.
troop, good troop,
Yeah,
and
Virginia
glad to have you
Mr.
here. And it's a pleasure, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. All right, thank you. All righty. Let's see, council, I think we have a couple of appointments. We have two positions that are available for citizen representatives to serve on the Sustain Abingdon Committee. What's your pleasure in this?
Mr. Mayor, if I might, you have two applications that are included in your packet, and then one additional one that came in today.
Okay.
I understand from Sarita Moore and Rick Statzer, who are kind of chairing this co-chairing this committee, that they would like to have all three applicants, and then their committee would be complete. So if council saw fit to do all three of those, that will fill the committee.
That's Mr. Shazer, Ms. Sykes, and Ms. Graves?
Yes.
Okay, and so that is the request of that particular committee. Okay, council, what's your pleasure on this?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept all three by acclamation.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, how about we call a roll? Would that be all right, just to say that we did?
I move that we call the roll.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, hearing no further discussion, Ms. Rosenbaum,
We
please.
have a second to the motion.
Yes, Kathy.
Kathy did, Ms. Lowe did.
Ms. Lowe.
Okay.
Mrs. Steering? Aye. Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Moore?
Aye, well, by golly, I think that's about acclamation or very close.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay, so we have our appointments, and that brings us to council member reports.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think that Mr. Macbeth has something he would like to address the
I'm
council.
sorry, excuse me, sir. You know, I've got so excited in the scouting thing.
thought he was gonna get home
It's
at
not
9
my
o'clock.
intention to overlook you, but
Yeah, Rich Macbeth, 1139 Panorama Drive, Abingdon. I just need to get an update. I remember a few months ago, I talked about what the status is on Empire Drive and the issues that we're having over there, and someone was supposed to get back to me. There was supposed to be some kind of meeting coming up, or they were going to get back to me on that.
I believe that was in regard to-
That was about 2 or 3 months ago.
I think that was in regard to a VDOT meeting that was planned about
Yeah.
that. Mr. Kelly, do you have any, or Mr. Dew, is he?
I have no knowledge of that meeting taking place. At a certain point in time, we were informed that there would be a meeting at some point taking place in that regard as a project out that way would move forward. I have not been notified of a meeting.
Right.
For
Is there
that.
any more update on what's going on 19 out there? Because we're hearing some other rumors that things are going to start happening out there. And that's going to cause a lot more problems where we live in Southview.
Is this in regard to development that's occurring out there?
Yep. Yeah, because, that needs to get fixed. And we're still having, accidents or close accidents and things going on every time. We take our lives, every time we try to get out of there to whatever, make a left, make a right, whatever the case may be, even coming into it, because the traffic coming in from Damascus area is, they speed up. And they've already taken out the signage there. They had to replace the signage out there coming off, and not too long. Everybody knows about that up there. So I just need to know what the status is. Like I said, I've asked about 2 or 3 months ago, and someone was supposed to get back to me. I have not heard anything from anybody.
Okay, and again, I don't think we've heard from VDOT here. Mr. Kelly, could you and Mr. Dew look into that and give us a report here at the next meeting in terms of the status of that, please?
We'd be happy to. Relative to any development out there, I've not had anyone formally approach me about that on anything on the town side.
I know the county side has, and they're allocated funds for doing stuff out there. So
Yeah, well, I am aware that the county has a significant project, as we all know, that's going on out there, and I think there's still some major issues that they're trying to work through and deal with. But on the town side, I have not received any formal request or anything from anyone. But if a development were to take place out there, we would certainly scrutinize the development.
how's the game?
We would certainly scrutinize the development to make sure that traffic and safety were certainly addressed for anything that does get developed, at least on the town side. And as we move forward with any communications with VDOT, I'll keep you apprised of those meetings, and if they're public meetings, we'll let you know that you're able to attend those meetings.
And we would note that the county's not been very communicative with us regarding, their plans for supporting development in that particular area.
I totally understand that.
And I'm not passing the buck at all. We are all aware of all the issues that are going, and I appreciate you continuing to
I will.
hold on to
I'll continue to
it. But my question is,
You know that.
I do, but my question is, do you attend every Board of Supervisors meeting and ask them about this?
I can attend.
Right, because they are the ones that have ultimate control of Empire Drive, which is what's so frustrating for us.
Not, just the one street, but all the businesses and everything else is all town. All the time,
Right, but Empire Drive that leads through all of those businesses belongs to the county, so it's as frustrating for us as it is for you, I can promise you.
Yeah,
And
it's
we've,
more frustrating for the people that live in.
I'm sure it is.
Deal with it.
And every time we go, and we just went to talk to the legislature, the first thing we brought up was transportation, and we spoke to them about exit 19, exit 17, and exit 14. And, you know, there is such a transportation issue within the whole state of Virginia that they really don't see our issues as a priority because of what's going on at Hampton Road. So we feel hogtied.
Yeah, and you look at the population changes down here in the 9th District is completely different than it is up there.
Right.
So the idea that we're going to get anything down here,
Right.
it's slim and none. But
And Mr. Macbeth, I'd like to apologize. My mother was a passenger in a car that took that sign out the other day. Hereafter, they'll be referred to as Thelma and Louise.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so Thelma and Louise took that sign out, but a lot of it was because of the narrowing of that road as you come into it and the acceleration of traffic and older drivers. And I'm sorry that they took that sign out.
But as she was a passenger, I don't.
She was a passenger. She was a passenger.
I seriously doubt that she would be the one driving it. But anyway, it's like I said, it's getting progressively worse, and with the onset of the stuff that's going on out there, it's just going to get worse.
Well, we do share your concern about that, and I'll leave it at that for the moment. But it certainly has had our attention in a number of ways.
Yeah.
But Mr. Kelly, if you would, if you and Mr. Dew would perhaps give us a report on that at our March meeting, it would be appreciated.
How about the other thing I brought up about some form of sidewalks or something out there on Empire, on the town side of Empire Drive, because we had a lot of people that walk to get to work and everything like this, and they actually have to walk in the street. There's no place there to walk.
And you're correct about that, and I've had a discussion in passing with Mr. Kelly about this recently, and I think we need to look at this in our capital improvement program, but you're very definitely correct from where the dollar store is to down to about Christ the King Catholic Church. There's no sidewalk, and I have seen several people at night walking literally in the road because there was nowhere to get.
Oh, it is, and even up Empire Drive.
Yeah.
You walk up in the road, that's the only place you have, because the side road is either too muddy or anything like this, it's any kind of weather, because it's, it's owned by private land, most of it over there.
Well, and we have just...
For the farmland over there.
Yeah, we have just completed a major highway, sidewalk project, through the town here that has been quite a long time in the planning, that we've had a number of residents, encouraging us to do for a long time. But I do think that neighborhood needs to be looked at. And Mr. Dew, you're trying to get my attention.
I would just say, as far as sidewalks on Empire Drive itself, that's all VDOT right of way. We wouldn't be able to build or construct sidewalks.
Even on the town side?
There isn't a town side of the right of way. The right of way line and the property line, the properties are in the town, but the right of way itself is.
So when the town doesn't, it picks up right at the Panorama in Canterbury?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the right-of-way or town limit is the northern right-of-way line for Empire Drive. So everything south of that is VDOT. So any sidewalk constructed along the edge of Empire Drive would be on VDOT right-of-way.
So there is a need then to communicate with VDOT about the issue.
Right, yeah, and Canterbury and those roads, once they get outside of that right-of-way of Empire Drive, then that is town right-of-way at that point. But everything, like you're talking about along the edge of Empire, would be VDOT right-of-way.
That's why I said we feel hogtied. We know our subdivision that's within the town of Abingdon is in the town of Abingdon, but the road that, it's like the road to nowhere.
Yeah, just like right now, I don't know what's going to go up there where the old flower shop, used to be. It looks like that's going out with everything else around here, selling out to Richards. trying to sell out the area because, they can't put anything back there. The other thing is update on, I need an update on is back when, was it this past year actually, is they were talking about putting an antenna out there for internet access, because that was talked about. It was also talking about possible park out there too, in the subdivision.
Yeah, the siren.
I worked with Garrett a lot on this before Garrett left.
The emergency siren is out there.
No, the siren, not, siren was, yeah.
Talking
I'm
about some
talking
kind of internet.
Town internet out there, because we don't get it out there. And also, the idea that they were going to put it's a possibility of putting some kind of a park or something like that down there, probably off of Florist, down there where the school owns the property. I mean, this is what Garrett was talking about.
Yeah,
before he left.
I know.
That's how long ago it's been.
When Garrett was still here with the town, he and I met with the school superintendent and discussed that very issue. We got no answer from them at that time, but there's been no follow-up discussion about the park. The internet node is, I will just have to check with Floyd, with the IT department, to see exactly where it is. We have one or two others that are in that vicinity that we're waiting to have power put to. Poles have been, pole has been put in place, but one thing I will point out to you and anyone else with regard to the internet connections from the Wi-Fi system is that a lot of places are having to buy a booster box that actually goes on, and Mr. Humphrey's one, that actually goes on the house that will allow you to connect into that. So it's not that you must.
Well, it's line of sight. You got a lot of times you got a line of sight. I've dealt with that kind of business, so I know what you're talking about. I have to do that with my AT&T. I have a microcell at my house.
Yeah, and I know in discussion on the other side, and this might dovetail into to what Greg's saying, they might bring that node up through, where the apartments are, the wall apartments are over there, and they're actually waiting for the hookup there at Fairview, and waiting for that. We're ready to go. We're just waiting for Appalachian Power Company to put the power hookup in there, and then hopefully they'll get the nodes in fairly quickly then. I know that talking to, because I had some people call from out the wall subdivision, and asked and talked to Floyd, and Floyd said that it's just a matter of when they get that put up, that he thinks it can be very expeditious in getting it done. So,
just looking for updates. That's all. Just a number of things.
And that's fine.
Thank you.
And I will say again, more than likely, I would imagine you're going to have a booster box where you're located in comparison to where that pole is. But you should get it.
Yeah.
You're high on the hill.
I'm not worried about it personally because I have my own. I have fiber optics. I work out of my house, so it's I have to.
You have to, yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there others that wish to address the council? I didn't mean to overlook anybody tonight. Okay. Hearing none, I'll ask if there are council member reports this evening. Mr. Humphreys?
Yes, sir.
Vice Mayor Lowe?
The Washington County Business Plan Challenge starts tomorrow night. I misspoke downstairs. We actually have 19 applicants who are participating and competing for the $5,000 prize money for a startup business and $5,000 for an expanding business. We have 12 that are going to attend the classes even though they're not competing, so we feel like we're going to have a full house. Our new knowledge series has grown tremendously, and on Wednesday, Jim Maxwell, the publisher of Bristol newspapers, and Tennille Montgomery, the marketing director for the town of Abingdon, are presenting a class on how to write and have your press release submitted. And we already have 22 people signed up for that class, and they're both going very, very well. And so stay tuned. We will be announcing two $5,000 winners on March the 19th at the Chamber Breakfast.
Well, very good. And I'm pleased to hear those numbers, that you have there. I'm glad to hear the interest in starting new businesses and so forth. Mr. Howard? You mentioned, I believe, you're going to be serving on the Emergency Preparedness Committee, and that initial group we appointed is going to have a meeting, I think, on Friday. Okay. And I believe you're looking for input if council may have some.
Yes. Nobody's required.
Okay. All right. Very good. Ms. During.
There was an article in Sunday's paper on the front page recognizing Washington County Fire Department, Abingdon
Yeah.
Fire Department. I know you've been very busy. We're thankful for how busy and prepared you are, and it was nice to see you get that recognition. Thank you.
You're here.
Hollywood.
That's great.
All right.
And
Very
you were
good.
probably busy working that morning instead of reading the paper.
Actually, Sunday night they did have, apartment fire Sunday
I
night.
thought it was Sunday morning. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you really have been. I don't have a whole lot to add, but I will mention just in passing that I'm going to be involved over the next, we're having the first meeting here this next week of what I'm sort of affectionately referring to as the Third Plate Book Club. And I'm sort of will be involved with a group, Mr. Costello and I, of folks who are going to be talking about a sort of a food initiative for the town of Abingdon and or Washington County or southwestern Virginia that will really focus on, first of all, how the notion of agriculture and soil health fit together, but more practically for us, how we do things like create, first of all, build on the success of the farmers market that we have here in town, how we can produce more foods that are really good foods that can be, our region can be identified with, how we can brand our region as an area where you can come for, for good food, and market opportunities that exist for folks. This particular group is sort of focused on reading a book called The Third Plate, which was written by a gentleman by the name of Dan Barber. And Mr. Barber runs a noted restaurant in New York City and has really been part of the local food initiative, the Farm to Table initiative. And there are some, I think, great opportunities for building on the success that we have had here. And I'll hope to be reporting back to council on this over the next several months as we begin to have these discussions. But I think it's a unique opportunity for us here in southwestern Virginia. Mr. Kelly, do you have anything? Ms. Rosenbaum, either one?
Nothing further from me.
Okay. Ms. Rosenbaum? Yes, sir. Okay. We have a series of events that are scheduled coming up here, not the least of which is the Celtic Fiddle Festival at Heartwood that is going to be held tomorrow night. I actually plan to attend myself that particular event. On first Thursday event is scheduled for this Thursday, February the 5th. Two things of note. My wife would be mad at me if I didn't mention that the Arts Depot was having their 6x6 event over there, which is a great chance to purchase some neat pieces of art for not a whole lot of money. And that same evening, the William King will have their Cosmos Exploring the Cosmos art event that will be at that venue that evening. A lot of planning and effort has gone into it, about 28 different artists, one of which is a member of my family. So we encourage you to come out for that. Rotary Frolics, let's see, that's Friday and Saturday night.
Friday and Saturday night. Fiddle and Carson Peters.
All right. Big event there. The Great Winter Soup Cook-Off is coming up at the Higher Education Center. Barter Theater opening up the 2015 season with the Road to Appomattox opening performance coming up here on the 14th. Valentine's Day, Cooking from the Book, a novel approached at the Higher Education Center. A lot of emphasis on food in this part of the world. Our town offices will be closed on February the 16th. Again, we've touched earlier on the council retreat from the 20th through the 22nd. And Barter will be having the grand opening of Anything Goes, the Cole Porter musical on February the 21st. And that, folks, is all I've got. Is there anything else that we need to talk about? We're going to have a good year at Abingdon, and we thank everyone for being with us here this evening, and we are adjourned.
Can we check my coats back there?